One day after my daughter's wedding, the restaurant manager called me and said, "We reviewed the security footage again. You need to see this yourself. Please come alone and don't tell your child anything." When I arrived, what I saw in the footage left me absolutely terrified. What would you do if you found out the person who slept beside you for nearly 2 decades, the person you trusted with your life, was meticulously planning your death? I'm Theodore Grayson, and just 3 weeks after I wrote a 6-figure check for my son's dream wedding, I discovered my entire life was a perfectly crafted lie, and the woman I called wife was a killer. It was a beautiful Monday morning. I was sitting in the sunroom of our Belmet estate, nursing a cup of black coffee that tasted like copper. Morning light streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, hitting the Italian marble floors Claudette had insisted we install 2 years ago. "It'll elevate the space," she'd said. Now I wondered what else she'd been elevating while I wasn't paying attention. My wife of 18 years stood by the antique credenza, arranging white magnolias in a crystal vase. She hummed something soft and gospel-like, the kind of tune that used to make me feel at home. Now it just sounded hollow. Claudette looked every bit the picture of a devoted Southern wife, pearls at her throat, cream silk blouse, perfectly coiffed silver-streaked hair. She was 50 years old and still stunning, in that Grace Kelly kind of way that made men twice her age turn their heads at the country club. But something about her had changed lately. Or maybe something about me had changed. I'd been feeling off for weeks, dizzy spells, heart palpitations, a persistent metallic taste in my mouth that no amount of mouthwash could wash away. Dr. Lell said it was stress, said a man my age, who'd built a $48 million real estate empire from nothing, had earned the right to feel tired. I believed him. That was my first mistake. My phone buzzed, cutting through the peaceful morning. It was Raphael, the manager of the Hermitage Grand Ballroom, the 5-star venue where Donovan and Savannah had just had their wedding reception. I'd paid him handsomely, in full, cash on the barrel, the way I always did business. So, why was he calling me now? "Raphael," I said, keeping my voice steady, but something in my gut already knew. "Everything all right?" The silence on the other end wasn't the comfortable kind. It was the kind that makes a man who's built an empire from nothing feel his instincts flare. I'd spent 30 years in commercial real estate, negotiating with contractors who'd sell their mothers for a zoning variance. I knew the sound of trouble before it opened its mouth. "Mr. Grayson." His voice was barely above a whisper, thin with terror. "Are you alone right now?" My eyes flickered to Claudette. Still at the credenza, humming, arranging those magnolias. Peaceful. Innocent. Perfect. I lied. The words tasted like ash. Then Raphael delivered the blow that stole my breath. "Sir, listen to me very carefully. Do not put this on speaker. Do not let Mrs. Grayson know who you're talking to. We were doing the post-event security review, standard protocol, and there's footage from the VIP suite. It was recorded about 40 minutes after you and the guests left the reception." My stomach plunged. Claudette? Savannah? It made no sense. They barely tolerated each other. Oil and water. Or so I thought. He ended with a chilling command, "It's your wife and your daughter-in-law. Mr. Grayson, you need to come down here right now. You need to see this with your own eyes. And sir, for your own safety, please come alone. Don't tell them where you're going." The line went dead. I sat there, phone warm in my hand, heart hammering. When I turned back, Claudette had moved. "Honey," she said, wiping her hands on a linen towel. Her smile, sweet, practiced, the same smile I'd woken up to for nearly 2 decades, now looked hollow. "Who was that on the phone? You look pale." I forced my face into a mask. The same mask I'd worn for decades, closing deals with sharks who wanted to see me fail. Calm. Unremarkable. "Just the pharmacy," I said, standing slowly. "Mix up with my blood pressure prescription. Need to go down there before they close." Her eyes, just for a fraction of a second, narrowed. If I hadn't been looking, I would have missed it. But I was looking now. And what I saw wasn't concern. It was pure calculation. "Oh," she cooed, a cool hand on my shoulder. "Do you want me to drive? You've been having those dizzy spells. I don't think you should be driving if you're feeling weak." "I'm fine, Claudette," I said, gently removing her hand. "Fresh air will do me good. I'll be back in an hour." As I backed my old 2015 Ford F-150 out of the driveway, the same truck I'd driven when building my first strip mall, long before the Mercedes and Porsche, I glanced up. She was standing at the sunroom window, perfectly still. Not smiling. Not humming. Just watching. Her face blank. Cold. Like she was appraising a property she was about to demolish. The drive, usually 25 minutes, I made in 18. My mind raced, replaying every moment of the wedding. The moment I'd given Donovan and Savannah the deed to the lake house, a $750,000 property. Signed over free and clear. Donovan cried, hugged me, thanked me. But Savannah? I rewound her reaction in my head. She'd smiled, yes, but her eyes had flickered to Claudette. A split-second look. I dismissed it as nerves. But now, with Raphael's terrified voice echoing in my skull, I knew exactly what that look had been. Confirmation. Victory. I pulled into the service entrance at the back of the Hermitage. Raphael was waiting, pacing like a caged animal. He was a sharp kid, usually slicked back hair, impeccably dressed. Today, he looked like he'd aged 10 years. Shirt soaked through with sweat, tie loosened, eyes darting toward the door. "Mr. Grayson," he stammered, rushing to my truck before I could kill the engine. "Thank God you came. Come inside. Quickly." He ushered me through the industrial kitchen, past line cooks, into a cramped, windowless security office that smelled like burned coffee and panic. There was a desk, a bank of monitors, and a single chair. "Sit down, sir," Raphael said, his voice shaking. He locked the door behind us. "Raphael," I said, my voice low and steady, though my hands were starting to tremble. "I've known you for 5 years. I tipped your staff 10 grand 3 weeks ago. Tell me what the hell is going on." He didn't answer. He just pulled up a video file on the monitor, fingers fumbling over the keyboard. The timestamp, 11:47 p.m., the night of the wedding. Raphael stepped back. His hand hovered over the mouse. "What I'm about to show you, sir," he whispered, "I'm sorry, but you need to see what kind of people your family really are." He pressed play. The screen flickered. Grainy black and white footage bleeding into focus. And then, there she was. My wife. And for the first time in 42 years, I saw her without the mask. This wasn't the exhausted, limping woman I'd driven home that night. This Claudette strode across the marble floor with the energy of someone half her age. Spine straight. Movement sharp. Purposeful. No limp. No fatigue. Just raw vitality. She went straight to the minibar, popped open a bottle of Dom Perignon like she was celebrating a hostile takeover. A moment later, Savannah walked in. Still in her wedding dress, but heels off, hair out of the elegant updo I'd paid 2 grand for. She looked like a fighter who'd just left the ring. Claudette poured 2 glasses. They clinked them together. The sound echoed through that cramped office like a gunshot. "To the stupidest man in Nashville," Savannah slurred, taking a long drink. The air left my lungs. Claudette laughed. Not her soft, modest church social laugh. This was harsh. Mocking. The sound of a woman who'd been holding it in for years. "To Theodore," she said, raising her glass higher. "The goose that lays the golden eggs." My hands gripped the armrest so hard, I thought the wood might crack. Beside me, Raphael stood frozen, watching me like he was afraid I might collapse. On the screen, Savannah sat on the velvet sofa, feet up on the coffee table. "God, I thought today would never end," she said. "Did you see his face when he gave us the deed? He actually thinks I want to spend weekends at a lake house with mosquitoes." "It's an asset, honey," Claudette said, sitting beside her. "We liquidate in 6 months. That's $750,000 in cash. Covers your student loans. Gets us the condo in Miami." Miami? Claudette hated Miami. She told me 100 times it was a den of sin. I believed her. Savannah sighed, rubbing her stomach. "I just hope Donovan doesn't get suspicious. He's so clingy. It's exhausting pretending to be attracted to him." I stopped breathing. Claudette patted her knee. "Stick to the plan. You only have to play the loving wife a little while longer. Once the baby is born, we secure the trust fund. The $35 million unlocks for the next generation." That trust fund was true. It was a clause my first wife, Grace, had insisted on, and I'd kept it to protect Donovan's future. But only Claudette knew the specific terms. "It's hilarious," Savannah cackled. "Donovan thinks this baby is his. He's so dumb. He actually believes the timeline works." My vision blurred. I gripped the edge of the desk, forcing myself to stay upright. I tasted bile. The copper taste in my mouth, now a sour burn of betrayal. "Whatever you do," Claudette warned, her voice dropping, "do not let Theodore find out about Cody. If he asks for a paternity test, we lose everything." Cody. The personal trainer at the Belmet Athletic Club, the kid I'd hired to help Savannah stay healthy during her pregnancy. "We're safe," Savannah sneered. "The old man is blind. He sees what he wants to see. He thinks you're a saint and his son is a prince." He has no idea he's the only one nodding in the joke. Then Savannah, casual as asking about the weather. So, what about the main event? How much longer do I have to smell old people smell? When does Theodore, retire permanently? Claudette took a sip. She looked directly at the camera, not knowing it was recording, and her face was pure, calculated malice. Soon, she said. I switched his heart medication 3 weeks ago. I've been crushing digoxin into his morning smoothies. Just a little bit every day. It builds up. Looks like natural heart failure. Dr. Lell already said his heart is weak. One day he'll just go to sleep and not wake up. She smiled. And then, my dear, we own everything. The video ended. Black screen. I sat there in the silence. A 72-year-old man who had just realized his entire life was a lie. My wife was a killer. My daughter-in-law was a fraud. My grandson wasn't my blood. And I was the mark. Raphael was terrified. Mr. Grayson, I didn't know what to do. If I called the police, they might confiscate the servers. But I couldn't let you go home to that. I looked at him. My legs were unsteady, but my mind was sharpening. The shock was fading, replaced by something cold. Hard. If I go to the police now, I said, my voice like gravel, they'll arrest them. But a good lawyer gets them out on bail in 24 hours. They'll claim the video is AI generated. They'll destroy the evidence. They'll tie me up in court while I'm dying, and they'll walk away with my empire. I gripped the USB drive. It felt heavier than it should have, like I was holding a loaded gun. No. I'm not going to the police. Not yet. I'm going back home. Raphael's eyes went wide. Sir, that's suicide. I turned back to him. The rage in my chest was burning now, hotter than any poison. No, I said. It's reconnaissance. They think I'm a senile old man losing his grip. They think I'm weak. They think I'm dying. I'm going to let them think they're winning. I'm going to drink her smoothie, and I'm going to make them believe I'm dead. And when they think they've buried me, I'm going to rise up and take everything from them. I walked out. Claudette wanted a heart attack. I was going to give her one. But it wasn't going to be mine. Monday morning. I sat at the kitchen table, watching my wife prepare the drink that was supposed to end my life. She was humming Amazing Grace, the same hymn from our wedding 18 years ago. Sunlight streamed through the bay windows, hitting the granite. Perfect. Picture perfect. Poison perfect. She pulled the blender out. Kale. Spinach. Ginger. A banana, going brown at the edges. She moved with practiced ease, like she'd done this 1,000 times before. Maybe she had. Then, she reached into the spice cabinet, the one I never opened because I couldn't tell cumin from coriander, and pulled out a small, amber pill bottle. Not prescription. The kind you hide something in. She glanced over her shoulder. My face was neutral, eyes on the newspaper, reading about zoning disputes I didn't care about. Satisfied I wasn't watching, she shook 3 white tablets into the marble mortar I'd bought her for Christmas 2 years ago. She'd said she wanted to make fresh spice blends for cooking. Fresh spice blends? I almost laughed. The pestle began grinding. Rhythmic. Deliberate. She was still humming. Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound, that saved a wretch like me. The pills turned to fine, white, deadly powder. She scraped it into the blender. The machine roared, grinding everything into a thick green sludge. When it stopped, she poured the mixture into a tall glass. It looked healthy. Virtuous. Like something a man with a weak heart should drink every morning. She turned. Walked toward me, glass extended like an offering. Good morning, honey, she chirped, her voice bright and warm. I made your smoothie. You missed it yesterday with all that running around to the pharmacy. I looked up at her. She was smiling. Not the calculating smile I'd seen on the security footage. This was her church smile. Her junior league smile. The smile that had fooled me for 18 years. Thank you, darling, I said, taking the glass. It was cold against my palm. You. Det. The baby is coming. Do you want your child to grow up in poverty? Or worse, do you want your mother to tell him about the drugs? I heard him sobbing. The drugs? Claudette knew. She'd weaponized his weakness. Just wait 15 minutes, Donovan, Savannah commanded. Let his heart stop completely. Then we call the coroner. Then we're free. I waited. I prayed. Please, son. Pick up the phone. Save your father. But there was only silence. And his weeping. Then Claudette spoke. She knelt beside me. Donovan, look at me, she said gently. It's for the best. He's in pain. He's been in pain for so long. His heart is tired. Paper brushed my hand. What is that? Donovan sniffled. It's a DNR, Claudette said. A do not resuscitate order. Your father signed it last month. He didn't want to be kept alive by machines. He wanted dignity. A lie. A forged lie. It's signed? Donovan asked, his voice trembling with relief. He was looking for permission to let me die. Yes, baby, Claudette lied. It's his wish. If you call 911, you're going against what he wanted. Let him go, Donovan. Let him rest. There was a long, horrible pause. Okay, Donovan whispered. Okay, Mom. We wait. He stood up. I heard him walk away. Away from his dying father. He chose the money. He chose them. In that moment, the father who loved his son unconditionally died on that rug. The man who remained was something else entirely. Something cold. Something that would burn their world to ash. I heard them moving around the room. Shuffling papers. Claudette's voice, businesslike. We'll say he collapsed at noon. 30-minute window. Savannah and the coroner on standby. I'll call in 5 minutes. What about the lake house deed? Already transferred. Once the trust unlocks, we liquidate everything. They were dividing my empire over my corpse. I'd been on that floor for 10 minutes. Long enough for Donovan to sign the fake DNR. Long enough for Claudette to rehearse her widow's tears. Long enough for them to think they'd won. It was time to show them they were wrong. I coughed. Not a weak cough. A violent, explosive roar that tore through the silence like a gunshot. And then I sat up. Looked directly at the 3 people who just tried to murder me. Savannah screamed. A high-pitched shriek of pure terror that rattled the windows. She stumbled backward, hand flying to her mouth, eyes wide as dinner plates. Claudette froze. The color drained from her face so fast I thought she might actually have the heart attack she'd been planning for me. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Donovan just stared. His face, a mask of confusion and guilt, tears still wet on his cheeks. I groaned theatrically, clutching my head, blinking like I'd just woken from a deep sleep. I needed to sell this. I needed them to believe I had no idea what had just happened. What? I rasped, my voice rough. What's going on? Why are you all looking at me like that? For a moment, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. They were paralyzed. Caught between the nightmare of my survival and the performance they needed to give. Then Claudette recovered. She was a master actress, after all. She'd been playing the devoted wife for 18 years. Oh, thank God, she gasped, rushing toward me, dropping to her knees. She grabbed my face with both hands, her fingers ice cold against my skin. Theodore. Oh my God, Theodore, you collapsed. You fell and stopped breathing. And we thought, her voice broke. Actual tears appeared in her eyes. I had to hand it to her. She was good. I collapsed. I said, looking around the room with fake confusion. I just felt dizzy. I was sitting in the chair and then, I touched my chest. My heart was pounding. We thought we lost you, Claudette whispered, pulling me into an embrace. Over her shoulder, I saw Savannah slowly lower her hand from her mouth. She was composing herself, forcing her face back into neutral territory. Donovan still hadn't moved. He was staring at me like I was a ghost, which I suppose I was. Dad, he finally said, his voice cracking. You weren't breathing. We thought, I'm okay, son, I said, patting his shoulder as Claudette helped me to my feet. My legs wobbled. That part wasn't an act. Lying on the floor, holding your breath for 10 minutes takes a toll. I'm okay, just weak, that's all. I let them guide me to the couch. I sat down heavily, rubbing my face with my hands. Savannah brought me a glass of water. Her hands were shaking so badly the water sloshed over the rim. Thank you, Savannah, I said, taking the glass. I looked up at her. You're trembling. I must have scared you pretty badly. You did, she said, her voice tight. We all thought, I know, I said softly. I know. I took a sip of water. Just a sip, because I wasn't about to trust anything in this house anymore. I set the glass down on the coffee table. I looked at the 3 of them, standing around me like mourners at a funeral that didn't happen. This was a warning, I said quietly. They all leaned in. I'm 73 years old, I continued. I've spent my entire life building Crosspoint Development Group. I've poured everything into this business, into this family. But today, I paused, letting my voice catch. Today, I felt Death's hand on my shoulder. And I realized something. What, honey? Claudette asked, sitting beside me and taking my hand. I realized I can't take it with me, I said. All the money, all the properties, all the power. When I go, and I will go, probably sooner than later, it all stays here. And I realized I haven't prepared you. I haven't set things up properly. I looked at each of them in turn. So, I'm going to fix that. Right now. This week. What do you mean? Savannah asked carefully. I mean, I'm retiring. Completely, I said. I'm done building. Done managing. Done pretending I have another 20 years. I don't. This episode today showed me that. Theodore, you don't have to make any big decisions right now, Claudette said soothingly. You're in shock. You should rest. No, I said firmly. I've made the decision. Next Sunday. At the Cathedral of Hope. After the service. They all went very still. I'm going to make a public announcement, I said. I'm going to transfer everything. The business. The properties. The trust fund. All $48 million of it. I saw Savannah's eyes light up. I saw Claudette's grip tighten on my hand. I saw Donovan's mouth fall open. To one person, I added. The room went silent. One person? Claudette repeated carefully. One heir, I said. That's how I built this empire. One vision, one leader. Committees are weak. Committees fail. I'm not going to split this up and watch it crumble. I'm going to give it all to the person who deserves it. The person who can carry the Grayson name forward. Who? Savannah asked. Her voice was barely a whisper. I looked at her. Then at Claudette. Then at Donovan. I don't know yet, I said. That's what this week is for. I'm going to watch you. I'm going to pray on it. I'm going to see who really cares about this family. Who really cares about me. I stood up slowly, waving off Claudette's hand when she tried to help me. Next Sunday, I said again, at the church, in front of Pastor Bishop, in front of the board, in front of God and everybody, I'm going to sign the papers. I'm going to name the heir. And then I'm going to spend whatever time I have left sitting on a porch somewhere, drinking sweet tea and waiting for the Lord to call me home. I walked toward the hallway, my steps deliberately slow and unsteady. Theodore, let me help you, Claudette started. I'm fine, I said, not turning around. I just need to lie down. I need to rest. And I need to think. I made it to the bedroom and closed the door behind me. I locked it. Then I pressed my ear against the wood and listened. Silence for a moment. Then I heard it, whispering. Low. Urgent. He doesn't suspect anything, Claudette hissed. Are you sure? Savannah whispered back. Positive. He thinks it was a spell. He thinks he's dying naturally. What about the announcement? It's perfect. Claudette said. And I could hear the smile in her voice. He's going to hand it over next Sunday, one heir. It'll be me. It has to be me. I'm his wife. Unless he gives it to Donovan, Savannah said. He won't, Claudette said confidently. Donovan's too weak. Theodore knows that. He'll give it to me. And then we proceed with the plan. 6 more days, Savannah echoed. 6 more days until we own everything. I stepped back from the door. 6 days. They thought they had 6 days until they won. They had no idea those 6 days were a countdown to judgment. I had protocols for everything. Hostile takeovers. Union strikes. Zoning board corruption. But Protocol Omega? That was different. Designed for total war. The kind where you burn everything to the ground and salt the earth so nothing ever grows back. I sat alone in my study, door locked, blinds drawn. It was Monday evening. The house was quiet. Claudette was downstairs making dinner, probably grinding more digoxin into whatever she planned to serve me. Donovan and Savannah had gone home, no doubt, celebrating their impending inheritance. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to a contact I hadn't called in 3 years. Veronica Nash. She wasn't just a lawyer. She was a weapon. Corporate litigation. Asset protection. Forensic accounting. She handled my dirtiest deals and never flinched. She cost $1,200 an hour, and she was worth every penny. I hit dial. She answered on the second ring. Theodore Grayson, her voice, sharp, precise. It's been a while. This better be catastrophic or worth 8 figures. It's both, I said. Code Omega. I'm being assassinated. There was a pause, a long one. Veronica knew what Omega meant. We drafted it years ago as a worst-case scenario, a nuclear option if the board ever tried to force me out or if the company faced existential collapse. Assassinated, she repeated slowly. Literally or figuratively? Literally, I said. My wife has been poisoning me with digoxin for 3 weeks. My daughter-in-law is extorting me. And my son watched me die on the floor today and chose not to call 911. Another pause. Then I'm coming to you. Where are you? No, I said quickly. Not the house. They're watching. Meet me at the warehouse. The old Crosspoint storage facility on Charlotte Pike. 1 hour. Come alone. Understood. She hung up. 60 minutes later, I was standing in the dim light of my company's storage warehouse, surrounded by stacks of construction materials and dusty filing cabinets. The place smelled like sawdust and old concrete. It was the first property I'd ever bought, 30 years ago. Back when I was still driving that F-150 and eating gas station sandwiches for lunch. Veronica arrived exactly on time. She was 52, rail-thin, with silver hair pulled back in a tight bun and a Chanel suit that probably cost more than most people's cars. She carried a leather briefcase and a look that could freeze blood. Show me, she said. No pleasantries. No small talk. I pulled out the USB drive Raphael had given me. I'd brought a laptop, an old one, not connected to any network. I plugged it in. Pressed play. Veronica watched the entire video in silence. Her face didn't change. Not when Claudette and Savannah toasted to the stupidest man in Nashville. Not when they talked about liquidating the lake house. Not when Claudette described crushing digoxin into my smoothies. When it ended, she closed the laptop. How long have you known? She asked. Since yesterday. And you went home anyway. I needed to see if Donovan was part of it, I said. He was. He let me die. He signed a forged DNR. Veronica set her briefcase on a dusty workbench and opened it. She pulled out a yellow legal pad and a pen. What do you want? Arrests? Lawsuit? Divorce? I don't want litigation, I said. I don't want a courtroom circus where they hire expensive lawyers and drag this out for years while I'm stuck in depositions. I don't want settlements. I don't want plea deals. Then what do you want? I want a public execution, I said. I want them exposed. In front of God and everybody. I want their reputations destroyed. I want them to walk out of that church in handcuffs while the entire community watches. Veronica's mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. You want Judgment Day. Exactly. She started writing. Talk me through it. I laid it out. The fake retirement announcement. The promise of a sole heir. The Sunday service at the Cathedral of Hope, with the board, the congregation, Pastor Bishop presiding. I'm going to play the video, I said, on the projection screen. In front of 500 people. I'm going to show them exactly who Claudette Grayson and Savannah Grayson really are. And then, I'm going to have the police waiting outside to take them away. You'll need more than the video, Veronica said. Defense will claim it's AI generated. We need corroboration. Physical evidence. I have it, I said. I pulled the wadded napkin from my pocket. The one soaked with poison smoothie. Digoxin. Enough to test. And I want a blood draw from me. Toxicology report showing digoxin levels in my system. I'll arrange it tonight. Done, Veronica said. Private lab. Chain of custody documented. What else? I need the accounts frozen, I said. All of them. Thursday morning. Make it look like a security breach. A hacking attempt. Tell the bank to lock everything down. Checking. Savings. Investment portfolios. Credit cards. Everything. That'll cause panic. That's the point, I said. I want Claudette trying to buy groceries on Saturday and her card declined. I want Savannah realizing the money pipeline has run dry. I want them desperate and paranoid by Sunday. Veronica nodded, still writing. And the assets. Liquidate quietly, I said. Sell the properties. Transfer the business holdings into a charitable trust. I want everything out of my name by Saturday night. And the paperwork ready to donate $32 million to Nashville Children's Services on Sunday morning. $32 million? Veronica repeated. Out of $48 million total. The rest goes to operational costs and severance for loyal employees. I'm not leaving them a dime. Not Claudette. Not Savannah. Not Donovan. Veronica looked up from her notes. What about your son, Theodore? He's still your son. No, I said, my voice flat. He's not. Not anymore. He watched me die and walked away. He chose money over blood. He's dead to me. But even as I said it, something twisted in my chest. I didn't know why. I didn't understand what could drive a man to betray his own father like that. I need to know why he did it, I said quietly. Before Sunday. I need to understand what broke him. Veronica closed her briefcase. I'll get you answers. Bank records. Phone logs. Surveillance if necessary. If there's a reason, I'll find it. Do it quietly. Don't spook them. Don't let any of them know what's coming until it's too late. She nodded. Thursday morning, accounts freeze. Saturday night, assets transferred. Sunday morning, the world ends. Sunday morning, I repeated. At the Cathedral of Hope. In front of everyone. Veronica walked to the warehouse door, then turned back. One thing, Theodore. Are you sure about this? Once you press that button, there's no going back. You'll destroy your wife. Your son. Your grandchild's mother. Your entire family. I thought about Claudette stepping over my body. Humming Amazing Grace while I lay dying on the floor. I thought about Donovan signing that DNR. They destroyed me first, I said. I'm just returning the favor. Veronica left with the USB drive and the liquidation orders. $48 million would disappear by Friday. When Claudette's card got declined on Saturday, the panic would begin. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Tuesday morning. I used my spare key to break into my son's apartment. I was looking for a strand of hair for a DNA test. What I found instead were the syringes that explained everything. Donovan and Savannah lived in a renovated loft in the Gulch, one of those trendy Nashville neighborhoods full of exposed brick and overpriced coffee shops. I'd co-signed the lease 2 years ago when Donovan said his credit wasn't good enough. Now I knew why. I waited until I saw them leave together in Savannah's Mercedes, probably heading to brunch, spending money they thought they'd inherit. I parked my truck 3 blocks away. Walked back, baseball cap pulled low, looking like just another old man out for a morning stroll. The apartment was on the 3rd floor. I let myself in. Locked the door behind me. The place was a mess. Dishes piled in the sink. Empty takeout containers on the counter. Mail scattered across the dining table, mostly red envelopes, past due notices, final warnings, collection agencies threatening legal action. I moved quickly. I needed DNA. Hair from a brush. A toothbrush. Something. I headed to the bathroom. The vanity was cluttered with Savannah's cosmetics and hair products. I found Donovan's electric razor and pulled a few hairs from the blade, placing them carefully into a small Ziploc bag I'd brought. Then I opened the medicine cabinet. And there it was. The bottles. Dozens of them. Orange prescription bottles with labels half peeled off. Oxycodone. Hydrocodone. Fentanyl patches. Names I didn't recognize, probably fake prescriptions or pills bought off the street. My hands started shaking. I opened the drawer beneath the sink. And there it was, the full picture. Syringes, still in their sterile wrappers. Used ones tossed in the trash. A blackened spoon with residue burned onto the bottom. A length of rubber tubing. Cotton balls, stained brown. My son was a junkie. I stood there, gripping the edge of the sink, staring at the evidence of Donovan's destruction. All those times he looked tired. All those times he'd been distant, distracted. All those times he'd asked me for money. Just rent, Dad. Just to cover rent. He hadn't been covering rent. He'd been covering his veins. I forced myself to keep moving. I went to his bedroom. The nightstand drawer was locked, but I knew Donovan. He'd always hidden things in obvious places. I found the key taped to the underside of the drawer. Inside was a burner phone. I powered it on. The text messages loaded slowly. Most were from numbers without names. But the pattern was clear. You owe $15K. Pay by Friday or we have a problem. Last warning. $400K total. You got 1 week. Then, your mom paid. You're clear. Don't F this up again. That last one was dated 18 months ago. Your mom paid. Claudette. She'd known. Known about the drugs. The debt. And she'd paid it off. Not to save him. But to own him. To control him. To turn him into her puppet. I took photos of every message. Then I put the phone back exactly where I'd found it. I grabbed the Ziploc bag with Donovan's hair and left the apartment, locking the door behind me. My chest felt tight. My hands were still shaking. But I couldn't afford to fall apart. Not yet. That evening, I drove to the Cathedral of Hope. Tuesday night Bible study. I knew Pastor Leonard Bishop would be there, and I knew exactly how to get what I needed from him. The cathedral was a massive stone building on West End Avenue, with stained glass windows that caught the sunset and made the whole place glow like it was on fire. It had been Grace's church, the place where we got married 42 years ago, the place where we buried her. Now it was Claudette's church. Her sanctuary. Her stage. I found Leonard in his office, reviewing notes for his sermon. He was 68, tall and lean, with silver hair and the kind of voice that made you want to confess your sins even if you didn't believe in God. He looked up when I knocked. "Theodore," he said, standing quickly, concern flooding his face. "I heard about your episode yesterday. How are you feeling?" "Weak," I said, letting my shoulders slump. "Tired. I need to talk to you. Spiritual guidance. I'm scared." "Of course," he said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. "Sit down, please." I sat. I let my hands tremble. I let my voice crack. "I felt death yesterday, Leonard," I said. "I felt it reach for me. And I realized I've been a sinner. I've been prideful. I've put money and business ahead of family, ahead of God. And now I'm running out of time to make it right." Leonard leaned forward, his eyes full of practiced compassion. "Theodore. The Lord forgives all who come to him with a repentant heart. You still have time." "Do I?" I asked. "I don't know. My heart is weak. Dr. Lell says it could happen any day. And I'm terrified, Leonard. Terrified of judgment. Terrified of leaving things broken. Donovan. My son. I feel like I failed him. Like I wasn't there enough. And now he's struggling and I don't know how to help him." Leonard's face flickered. Just for a second. Something that looked like guilt. "Let me pray with you, Theodore," Leonard said, standing. "And then I'll get you some water. You look pale." "Thank you," I whispered. He stepped out of the office. The moment he was gone, I moved. His coffee cup, half full, was sitting on the desk. I pulled out a plastic evidence bag Veronica had given me. Carefully poured the coffee into it, making sure to capture the residue on the rim where his lips had touched. DNA. Saliva. Sealed the bag. Slipped it into my jacket pocket. Just as Leonard returned with a glass of water. "Here," he said, handing it to me. I took it. I didn't drink it. I just held it like a prop. "Leonard," I said quietly. "If I die, will you take care of Claudette? Will you make sure she's not alone?" Something passed over his face. A shadow. A secret. "Of course, Theodore," he said. "She'll always have the church. She'll always have me." I stood up slowly, gripping his hand. "Thank you, brother. You've been a good friend." I left the cathedral and drove straight to Dr. Patrick Lell's private lab. Patrick was a forensic pathologist I'd used for insurance fraud cases over the years. He owed me favors. And more importantly, he knew how to keep his mouth shut. He met me in the parking lot, away from the main building. "Theodore," he said, eyeing the bags I handed him. "What am I looking at?" "3 tests," I said. "First, toxicology on this napkin. I need to know what poison is on it and how much. Second, paternity test. This hair belongs to my son. I need to know if I'm his biological father. Third, paternity test. Between my son and this coffee cup. I need to know if the man who drank from this cup is his biological father." Patrick's eyes widened. "Theodore. What the hell is going on?" "I'm being murdered," I said. "And I need proof. Before Sunday." He looked at the bags, then at me. "This is going to take time. DNA analysis isn't instant. You have until Wednesday morning," I said. "I'll pay triple your rate. I'll pay whatever it takes. But I need those results before the weekend." Patrick was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded. "I'll work through the night." "Thank you," I said. He held up the bags. The hair. The coffee cup. The poison napkin. "Theodore, if these results are what I think they're going to be, you're going to want to sit down when I call you." I drove home in the dark. My mind was racing. My heart was pounding. By Wednesday morning, I would know 3 things. 1. Whether Claudette had actually been poisoning me. 2. Whether Donovan was my son. 3. Whether Leonard Bishop was his father. And depending on those answers, Sunday was either going to be a reckoning. Or an apocalypse. Wednesday morning. 9 a.m. Dr. Patrick Lell's grim voice on the phone. I was sitting in my truck in the parking lot of a Waffle House off I-40, halfway through a cup of coffee I couldn't taste. I'd barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those syringes in Donovan's bathroom. The blackened spoon. The rubber tubing. Theodore, Patrick said. I've got your results. All 3 tests. I set the coffee cup down. My hand was shaking. Tell me the napkin first, he said. The substance you gave me tested positive for digoxin. Extremely high concentration. Roughly 8 milligrams in the residue alone. If you'd swallowed what was in that smoothie, Theodore, you'd have been dead within an hour. Cardiac arrest. It would have looked completely natural, given your age and medical history. I closed my eyes. 1 hour. I'd been 1 swallow away from death. Second test, Patrick continued. Paternity between you and the hair sample, your son, Donovan. The results show a 99.9% probability of paternity. Theodore, you are his biological father. No question. Something broke open in my chest. Relief. Rage. Grief. All at once. He was mine. My blood. My son. And he'd still let me die. Third test, Patrick said quietly. Paternity between the coffee cup, Pastor Leonard Bishop, and your son. 0 probability. No genetic relation whatsoever. Bishop is not Donovan's father. I sat there in the parking lot, staring at the dashboard, trying to make sense of it. Donovan was mine. Not Leonard's. So why the hell was Claudette conspiring with the pastor? Why was she protecting him? Why was Leonard hovering around my family like a vulture? Theodore. Patrick's voice pulled me back. Are you still there? Yeah, I said. Yeah, I'm here. Send me the reports. Encrypted. And Patrick, thank you. Be careful, Theodore, he said. Whatever you're walking into, be careful. I hung up and immediately dialed Veronica Nash. She answered on the first ring. Talk to me. I need bank records, I said. Donovan's accounts. Every transaction for the last 2 years. And I need them now. Already done, Veronica said. I pulled them yesterday. Theodore, there's something you need to see. How fast can you get to my office? 20 minutes later, I was sitting across from Veronica in her downtown Nashville law firm, staring at a spreadsheet that made my stomach churn. Your son has been receiving monthly deposits, Veronica said, sliding the paper toward me. $40,000 every month for the last 18 months. I scanned the numbers. $40,000 every single month, like clockwork. That's $720,000, I said. Correct, Veronica said. And look at this. She pointed to a line near the top. 18 months ago, there was a one-time payment of $400,000. Same account, same source. Where's it coming from? I asked. A Shell LLC, Veronica said. But I traced it. It's funded by wire transfers from Claudette's personal trust fund, the one she inherited from her first husband. My jaw tightened. Claudette had been paying Donovan for a year and a half. $720,000 in monthly payments. $400,000 up front. Why? I said, why would she be giving him that kind of money? Veronica pulled out another document. I hired a private investigator. He tracked down one of Donovan's former dealers, a guy named Marcus Works, out of a dive bar in East Nashville. For the right price, he talked. She slid a transcript across the desk. I read it. Investigator, you know Donovan Grayson? Marcus, yeah, rich kid. Oxy habit. Owed us about $400,000. Thought we were going to have to break his legs. Investigator, but you didn't. Marcus, nah. His stepmom paid it off. Lady showed up with cash in a briefcase. Told us she'd handle his debt, but we had to leave him alone. Said he was useful. Investigator, useful how? Marcus, didn't say. But she kept paying after that. Monthly. Like she was keeping him on retainer or something. I set the paper down. My hands were trembling with rage. Claudette had found out about Donovan's addiction. And instead of telling me, instead of getting him help, she'd weaponized it. She'd paid off his dealers. She'd kept him hooked. She'd given him just enough money to survive. Just enough to stay dependent. She'd bought him. And she'd used him to help kill me. There's more, Veronica said quietly. She pulled up another file on her laptop and turned the screen toward me. The investigator also found these. They were photos. Donovan sitting in a car outside a pharmacy. Donovan meeting Claudette in a Starbucks parking lot. Donovan walking into his apartment building with a package under his arm, his face hollow and gaunt. These were taken over the last 6 months, Veronica said. Claudette has been meeting with him regularly, always in public places. Always brief. And always followed by a deposit into his account. I stared at the photos. My son. My own flesh and blood. Being controlled like a puppet on strings. She didn't just manipulate him, I said. She owned him. Yes, Veronica said. And when you collapsed on Monday, he didn't call 911 because she had leverage. The drugs. The debt. The payments. If he tried to save you, she'd cut him off. She'd expose him. She'd destroy him. I stood up and walked to the window. Downtown Nashville stretched out below me. Tall buildings. Busy streets. People living their lives like the world wasn't burning. He's still my son, I said quietly. He's also an accomplice to attempted murder, Veronica said. He's a victim, I said. And a coward. And a traitor. But he's my blood, Veronica. The DNA confirmed it. Donovan is mine. Not Leonard's. Not anyone else's. Mine. So, why is Leonard involved? Why is Claudette conspiring with him? Don't know yet, Veronica said. But I will. I've got people digging into Leonard's financials and Claudette's old records. If there's a connection, we'll find it. I walked back to the desk and looked at the bank records again. $720,000. 18 months of payments. 18 months of control. What do you want to do about Donovan? Veronica asked. I thought about the syringes. I thought about the texts on the burner phone. I thought about him standing over my body, crying, and then walking away. I want him to testify, I said. Veronica raised an eyebrow. Theodore, he'll never cooperate. Claudette owns him. Not if I offer him something better, I said. Not if I offer him a way out. What are you thinking? Sunday, I said. At the church. I'm going to expose Claudette and Savannah in front of everyone. And then I'm going to give Donovan a choice. He can go down with them. Or he can tell the truth, testify against them, and I'll pay for the best rehab facility in the country. Full ride. Clean slate. If he chooses them, then he gets nothing. And I bury him alongside his stepmother. Veronica nodded slowly. It's risky. But it might work. It has to work, I said, because there's still one piece missing. Savannah. Exactly, Veronica said. Who is she? Why is she here? Why did Claudette bring her into this family? The DNA said Leonard isn't Donovan's father. But what if he's Savannah's father? Veronica's eyes widened. You think Savannah is Claudette and Leonard's daughter? I don't know, I said. But I'm going to find out. This afternoon. And I'm going to make sure every word she says is recorded. I stood up and grabbed the DNA reports from the desk. The napkin test, the paternity results, the bank records. Everything's in place for Sunday? Yes, Veronica said. Accounts freeze tomorrow morning. The cathedral is confirmed. Police will be on standby. And I've arranged for the video to be broadcast on the projection screen. Good, I said, because we're almost out of time. I walked out of Veronica's office with the evidence that my son was my blood, and the evidence that my wife had bought him like property. But that one puzzle piece remained. Savannah. And this afternoon, I was going to find out. I was wearing a camera disguised as a shirt button. Cost me $5,000 from a private security firm in Atlanta. I was about to get $5 million worth of evidence. My daughter-in-law thought she was negotiating. In reality, she was confessing. It was Wednesday afternoon. 3 p.m. I sat in my truck outside Riverside Roaster, a hipster coffee shop on the Cumberland River with exposed Edison bulbs and baristas who looked like they'd rather be playing in a band. The kind of place Savannah loved. The kind of place where a 73-year-old man in a flannel shirt and work boots looked completely out of place. Perfect. I checked the camera one more time. It was embedded in the second button of my shirt, a tiny lens no bigger than a pinhead. The recording device was in my jacket pocket, connected by a wire thinner than a human hair. Veronica's tech guy had installed it this morning, along with a backup audio recorder clipped to my belt. Test it, I whispered, looking down at my chest. The green LED on the device in my pocket blinked twice. Recording. I stepped out of the truck and walked into the coffee shop. The smell of overpriced espresso and pretentious conversation hit me immediately. I scanned the room. Savannah was sitting in the back corner, sunglasses on, even though we were indoors. Scrolling through her phone like she was reviewing stock portfolios instead of Instagram. She was wearing a white linen dress that probably cost more than my first car. Her blonde hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail. She looked like money. Old money. The kind she didn't have, but was damn good at pretending she did. I walked over. She didn't look up. "Savannah," I said. She glanced up, pushing her sunglasses down just enough to look at me over the rims. "Theodore, you're late." "Traffic," I lied, sitting down across from her. She set her phone on the table, face down. "Let's make this quick. I have a prenatal yoga class at 4. I leaned back in the chair, letting my hands rest on the table. Calm. Unthreatening. Just an old man trying to keep his family together. "I wanted to talk to you about Sunday," I said. "The big announcement," she said, a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "The one where you hand over your entire empire to one lucky heir." "That's right. And you wanted to meet with me because I want to make sure you stay," I said. "I want to make sure you don't leave Donovan. I want to make sure my grandchild grows up in a stable home." Savannah tilted her head, studying me like I was a bug under a microscope. "How noble." I reached into my jacket and pulled out a folded envelope. I set it on the table between us. "There's $750,000 in here. Cash. Untraceable. It's yours. A gift. To ensure you stay with my son. To ensure you raise that baby in this family." She stared at the envelope. Then she laughed. It wasn't a polite laugh. It was sharp. Mocking. The kind of laugh that cuts. "You think I'm cheap, Theodore," she said, leaning forward. "You think $750,000 is enough to buy me?" I didn't answer. I just watched her. "Let me tell you something," she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "I know about the offshore accounts. The ones in the Cayman Islands. The $35 million trust fund that unlocks when this baby is born. I know about the properties. The investment portfolios. The real estate holdings. Donovan told me everything." My chest tightened. Of course. Donovan was weak. Desperate. And he was stupid. "So, here's what's going to happen," Savannah continued, leaning back in her chair, her arms crossed. "You're going to sign that trust fund over to me. Not Donovan. Direct transfer. And you're going to do it on Sunday, in front of everyone. Just like you promised." "To you," I said carefully. "Not to my son?" "Donovan is a puppet," she said, her voice cold. "He's weak. He's useless. He can't manage a checking account, let alone a $35 million trust. But I can. I've been managing him for 2 years. And I'll keep managing him after you're gone." "After I'm gone," I repeated slowly. She smiled. "You're 73, Theodore. You had a heart episode on Monday. You're not going to be around much longer. We both know that. So, let's not pretend this is about legacy. This is about control. And right now, I have it." I let the silence sit between us. I could feel the camera recording every word, every flicker of her expression, every ounce of her arrogance. "And if I say no?" I asked quietly. Savannah leaned forward again, her eyes locked on mine. "Then I go to the police. And I tell them you sexually assaulted me." I felt my hands clench into fists under the table. "I'll tell them you cornered me in your office," she said, her voice steady. Practiced. Like she'd rehearsed this. "I'll tell them you forced yourself on me. I'll cry. I'll shake. I'll be the young, pregnant victim. And you'll be the old, powerful man who thought he could get away with it. No one will believe you," I said. "Won't they?" She tilted her head. "I'm 29. I'm pregnant. I'm vulnerable. You're 73. You're rich. You're a man. Who do you think they'll believe, Theodore? Who do you think the jury will side with?" She leaned back, satisfied. "Even if you win in court, you lose. Your name gets dragged through the mud. Your business partners abandon you. Your legacy becomes that rich old man who assaulted his daughter-in-law. You'll die alone. And disgraced." I sat there, staring at her. This woman. This stranger. Who had married my son. Who was carrying another man's baby. Who was sitting across from me, threatening to destroy my life with a lie. And smiling while she did it. I let my shoulders slump. I let my face fall. I let her think she'd won. "Okay," I said quietly. You win. Her smile widened. Smart man. I'll sign the papers on Sunday. I'll sign the papers on Sunday, I said. The trust fund goes to you. Direct transfer. Just like you want. Good, she said, standing up. She picked up the envelope with the $750,000 and slipped it into her designer purse like it was pocket change. Consider this a down payment. I'll see you at the church. She walked out, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor. Her ponytail swaying behind her like a victory flag. I sat there alone, staring at the empty chair across from me. The coffee shop buzzed around me. Laptops clicking. Milk steamers hissing. Conversations about nothing. I reached up slowly and touched the button on my shirt. The camera. I pressed it once, deactivating the recording. Got you, I whispered. I pulled out my phone and opened the app connected to the camera. The video file was there. 19 minutes. Crystal clear audio and video. Savannah's face. Her voice. Her threats. Her confession. Donovan is a puppet. He's weak. He's useless. I'll tell them you sexually assaulted me. I'll cry. I'll shake. Even if you win in court, you lose. Every word. Every lie. Every calculated threat. All recorded. All admissible. I stood up and walked to the counter. I paid for a coffee I hadn't ordered and left a $20 tip. The barista looked confused, but I didn't care. I walked out into the late afternoon sun. The camera felt warm against my chest, like it was burning through my shirt. But I still didn't have the final piece. Savannah was a predator. A liar. A manipulator. But who was she? Where had she come from? Why had Claudette brought her into this family? The DNA test said Leonard wasn't Donovan's father. But what if he was Savannah's? What if Savannah wasn't just a gold digger? What if she was Claudette's daughter? My phone buzzed. A text from Veronica. Investigator found something. Birth records. Call me. I got into my truck and started the engine. Tomorrow morning, the investigator would call with an answer that would redefine evil. And by Sunday, the whole world would know exactly who Savannah Grayson really was. Thursday morning. My phone rang with news that would make you question reality itself. Mr. Grayson. The investigator said. I found Savannah's birth certificate, and sir, you're going to want to sit down before I tell you what year she was actually born. I was standing in my garage, staring at the wall where I kept my tools, wrenches, and hammers organized by size. Everything in its place. 40 years of building things, fixing things, creating order out of chaos. But what Marcus Webb was about to tell me would shatter every assumption I had made about the world. I'm sitting, I lied, gripping the workbench. Savannah Grayson doesn't exist, Marcus said. Not before 2015. What do you mean she doesn't exist? I mean there's no driver's license before 2015. No credit history before 2015. The birth certificate she used to get married? It was issued in 2015. Brand new. Her social security number, only 10 years old. Mr. Grayson, this woman appeared out of thin air a decade ago. My chest tightened. So she's using a fake identity? Not exactly, Marcus said. It's more like a rebuilt identity. I found surgical records. Miami. 2015, a woman, approximately 45 years old at the time, underwent extensive cosmetic surgery. We're talking full facelift, brow lift, neck lift, upper and lower blepharoplasty, cheek implants, lip augmentation, laser resurfacing. Total cost $400,000. And when she walked out of that clinic 6 months later, she looked 25. I sank onto a milk crate, my legs suddenly weak. Who paid for it? Wire transfer from an offshore account in the Caymans, Marcus said. Traced back to a shell company owned by Claudette Blackwell. Claudette. Of course. But here's where it gets dark, Marcus continued. I kept digging. I went back further. Way further. And I found the original birth certificate. The real one. A baby girl born November 12, 1975. Mother, Claudette Blackwell, age 21, unmarried. Father, not listed. The birth took place at a private clinic in Lexington, Kentucky. The baby was immediately placed with a relative, an aunt, and raised under the name Sarah Mitchell. I did the math in my head. 1975, that was 50 years ago. Marcus, I said slowly. If she was born in 1975, that makes her 50 years old. Savannah Grayson is 50 years old, Mr. Grayson. Not 29. She's been lying about her age by over 20 years. The garage spun. I grabbed the edge of the workbench to steady myself. There's more, Marcus said. I got DNA results back from that coffee cup you took at the cafe. You asked me to cross-reference it with Claudette's medical records on file at Nashville General. Mr. Grayson, it's a match. Savannah is Claudette's biological daughter. 99.9% probability. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. And the father? I asked, though I already knew the answer. I pulled DNA from the pastor's coffee cup, the one you took from his office. I ran it against Savannah's sample. It's a match. Pastor Leonard Bishop is Savannah's biological father. The walls of the garage closed in. Leonard. Claudette. 50 years ago. An affair. A secret baby. A daughter given away and hidden. Marcus, I said, my voice barely a whisper. Savannah married my son. She married Donovan. I know, Marcus said quietly. Donovan is 43 years old. Savannah is 50. She's 7 years older than him. And she's a stepsister. Legally? Yes. Marcus said, Claudette married you 18 years ago, making Savannah your stepdaughter by blood, even though you never knew she existed. And when Savannah married Donovan 2 years ago, she married her own stepbrother. I stood up and walked to the trash can in the corner of the garage. I bent over and vomited. Everything I'd eaten that morning came up in a violent, acidic wave. I heaved until there was nothing left, until my ribs ached and my throat burned. Mr. Grayson? Marcus's voice came through the phone, tiny and distant. Are you still there? I wiped my mouth with the back of my hand. Yeah, I'm here. There's one more thing, Marcus said. I found adoption records. After Claudette gave birth in 1975, she signed over custody to her aunt, a woman named Margaret Mitchell in Louisville. Claudette was 21, unmarried, and her family was old money, deeply religious. They couldn't have a scandal, so they hid the baby, sent her away. And Claudette married someone else a year later, a wealthy banker. He died in 1995, left her a fortune. And Leonard? I asked. Leonard Bishop became a pastor, married Ruth Coleman in 1978, built a megachurch, played the role of devoted man of God for 50 years. But he never forgot about Claudette. Or the daughter they gave away. I walked out of the garage into the cold morning air. The sky was gray, heavy with clouds. I could smell rain coming. When did Savannah come back into Claudette's life? I asked. 2015, Marcus said. Right after the surgeries. I found emails between Claudette and Savannah, or Sarah as she was known. Then, Claudette reached out, told her the truth about who her real mother was. Offered her money. Offered her a new life. A new face. A new identity. And a plan. What plan? To seduce your son, Marcus said. To marry him. To get pregnant, or pretend to get pregnant. To secure the trust fund. And then to kill you. The words hit me like a sledgehammer. This wasn't a 2-year plan, Marcus continued. This was a 50-year plan. Claudette gave up her daughter in 1975 to avoid scandal, but she never stopped thinking about her. She waited. She built wealth. She married you. And when the time was right, she brought Savannah back, gave her a new face, a new name, a new age, and aimed her at your son like a loaded gun. I looked up at the sky. Rain was starting to fall, light and cold. Mr. Grayson, Marcus said. Claudette has been planning your murder since before you even met her. She married you to position herself. She brought Savannah in to control Donovan. And she's been orchestrating this for decades. I thought about Donovan, my son, my blood, married to a woman who was 50 years old, married to a woman who was his stepsister, married to a woman who was using him as a pawn in a 52-year conspiracy. Did he know? Did he know Savannah's real age? Did he know she was Claudette's daughter? Or was he just another victim? Marcus, I said, send me everything. Every document, every record, every photo. I want it all. Already done, he said. Check your encrypted email. It's all there. Thank you, I said. I hung up and stood there in the rain, letting it soak through my shirt, through my skin, into my bones. 50 years. Claudette had been building this trap for 50 years. She'd given up her daughter. Hidden her. Waited. And when the moment was right, she'd brought her back, remade her, and weaponized her. But there was still one piece that didn't fit. Donovan, my son, my blood. Why had he betrayed me? Was it just the drugs? Was it just Claudette's money? Or was there something deeper? If Claudette had leverage over him, if she had something that kept him under her control, I needed to know what it was. I walked back into the garage and grabbed my truck keys. I knew where Donovan kept things. I'd been to his apartment once already. But I hadn't found everything. Tonight, I was going back, and this time I wasn't leaving until I understood why my own son had chosen to let me die. I shouldn't have found the journal. It was hidden under the mattress like a teenager's contraband. But when I opened it, I found something worse than drugs. I found my son's soul, dying on the pages. Thursday night, almost midnight. I'd driven back to Donovan's apartment in the Gulch, let myself in with the spare key. The place was dark and empty. Donovan and Savannah were out, probably celebrating their impending inheritance. I moved through the apartment methodically. I'd already found the drugs. I'd already taken his hair. But there had to be more. Something that explained why my son had walked away from my dying body. I searched the bedroom. Under the bed, behind the dresser, inside the closet. Then I pulled back the mattress. A small leather journal, bound with an elastic band, tucked between the mattress and box spring. I sat on the edge of the bed and opened it. The first entry was dated 18 months ago. The handwriting was shaky, desperate. The dealers are going to kill me. $400,000. I can't tell Dad. He'll never forgive me. I turned the page. Mom found my syringes today. I thought she'd tell Dad, but she didn't yell. She offered to help. Said she'd pay off the debt. Said I just had to stay quiet. My chest tightened. Claudette had found him at his weakest. And turned him into property. Mom paid the $400,000. The dealers are gone, but now I owe her. She says it's family, but I see the way she looks at me now, like I'm a tool she owns. I turned another page. She's been giving me $40,000 a month. Says it's to help me get clean, but I know what it really is. It's a leash. Next page. Dad's getting weaker. Dizzy spells. Mom says it's his heart. But I wonder. I see her making those smoothies every morning. I see the way she watches him drink. And I wonder if... The sentence trailed off. He'd suspected. But he'd been too afraid. Too dependent. Too broken to act. Savannah moved in. Mom introduced us. Said she was a friend's daughter. She's beautiful. Mom says marrying her would make Dad happy. I married Savannah today. Dad cried. He looked so proud. I feel like a fraud. And then the entry for Monday. The day I collapsed. Dad collapsed today. He wasn't breathing. I wanted to call 911, but Savannah stopped me, slapped me, said if I called, Mom would tell Dad about the drugs, would destroy me. She said, if you save him now, we all lose and you'll go to prison. I didn't call. I watched my father die. I'm a coward. I'm a murderer. I couldn't breathe. My son had written his own confession. His own guilt. But there was more. Loose pages tucked inside. Printed screenshots of text messages. A hidden group chat. Claudette. Savannah. Leonard. I spread them out on the bed. Claudette, once Theodore is dead, we wait 3 months. Let Donovan think he's safe. And then. Leonard, then phase 2. We plant 50 kilograms of cocaine in Donovan's car. Tip off the DEA with an anonymous call. Make it look like he's been running drugs for months. Claudette, the feds freeze all his assets. I petition for emergency financial control as his mother. The money flows to me. Savannah, and Donovan? Claudette, he gets arrested. Federal drug trafficking. Mandatory minimum 20 years. But he won't last that long. Leonard has contacts inside the prison system. 6 months in, there's an accident. A fight. A shiv. My son dies a convicted drug dealer. Savannah, and I inherit everything as his widow. Leonard, clean. Untraceable. I stared at the messages. They weren't just planning to kill me. They were planning to kill Donovan, too. Frame him. Imprison him. Murder him. At the bottom of the last page, scrawled in Donovan's handwriting, they're going to kill me, too. He knew. The timestamp showed he'd found this 2 days ago. 2 days ago, Donovan had discovered that his mother, his wife, and his pastor were planning to destroy him. And yet, he'd still walked away from my body. Why? I turned the page. One final entry. Written yesterday. I found the plan. I know what they're going to do. But if I tell Dad, they'll move faster. They'll kill him sooner. And I'll still end up dead or in prison. I'm trapped. The only way out is if Dad figures it out himself. If he survives. If he's strong enough to fight back. Please, Dad. Please see through this. Please save yourself. Because I can't save either of us. I sat there, holding the journal. My son. My weak. Broken. Cowardly. Desperate son. He'd been trying to protect me. In the only way he knew how. By staying quiet. And hoping I'd be smart enough to survive. He hadn't betrayed me because he was evil. He betrayed me because he was terrified. Because he believed he was already dead. I pulled out my phone and photographed every page. The journal entries. The screenshots. The handwritten confession. Every word. Then I put the journal back exactly where I'd found it, tucked under the mattress. I walked out and locked the door. Sat in my truck in the parking lot, staring at the photos. Donovan knew he was going to die either way. Whether I survived or not, Claudette's plan would end with him in a grave. But he was wrong about one thing. He wasn't already dead. Not yet. Sunday was 3 days away. 3 days to finish the trap. 3 days to make sure Claudette, Savannah, and Leonard walked into that church thinking they'd won. And 3 days to decide if my son deserved mercy. Or judgment. Friday morning. I stood across the street and watched Savannah's credit card get declined. The security guard confiscated it. Through the glass window, I watched her scream. Seeing her humiliation was better than any painkiller. It was 11 a.m. Veronica had executed Protocol Omega at exactly 9 a.m. Every account frozen. Every credit card flagged. Every line of credit severed. Their financial empire had vanished overnight, replaced by a single message on every banking portal: security hold. Unauthorized access detected. I was parked outside a boutique on West End Avenue, sipping coffee from a paper cup, watching the show through my rearview mirror. Savannah had walked in 20 minutes ago, arms full of shopping bags, dressed like she owned the city. She'd grabbed 3 more outfits, probably for Sunday, for her triumphant appearance at the church. The total came to $8,000. She'd swiped her platinum card without a second thought. Declined. She'd frowned. Tried again. Declined. The cashier had called the manager. The manager had called the credit card company. And within 5 minutes, a security guard had walked in and confiscated the card with a pair of tweezers like it was evidence at a crime scene. "Ma'am, this card has been reported stolen," the guard had said, loud enough for everyone in the store to hear. Savannah had screamed. Not a polite objection. A full-throated, entitled shriek. "That's my card. That's my money. How dare you?" But the guard didn't care. He'd bagged the card, handed her a receipt, and told her she was lucky he wasn't calling the police. She'd stormed out, face red, mascara smudged, empty-handed. I'd smiled into my coffee. At 2 p.m., I got a text from Veronica with a photo attachment. It was a screenshot from an ATM camera. Claudette standing in front of a Chase Bank machine, her face pale, her hand frozen on the screen. The ATM had eaten her card. The message on the screen read, "Card retained. Contact your bank." Veronica's text: she tried 3 different ATMs. All 3 ate her cards. She's panicking. I replied, "Good." By 4 p.m., my phone rang. Claudette. I let it ring 4 times before I answered. I needed her desperate. "Theodore." Her voice was high. Strained. "Something's wrong with the accounts." "What do you mean?" I said calmly, like I was checking the weather. "I tried to withdraw cash. The ATM ate my card. I tried to log into the bank portal. It says access denied. I called the bank. They said all our accounts are frozen due to suspicious activity." Suspicious activity, I repeated slowly. "They said there was a hacking attempt. A security breach. Theodore, what's going on?" I paused. Let the silence stretch. Let her panic build. "I got a call from the bank this morning," I said. "They detected a massive intrusion attempt. Someone tried to access the offshore accounts, the trust fund, everything. They think it originated from inside the network. Maybe one of our devices was compromised." "Compromised?" Her voice cracked. "What does that mean?" "It means they've locked everything down. Protocol Omega. It's a security measure. Nothing moves until the forensic team clears it." "How long will that take?" she shouted. 72 hours. "Theodore, we have bills. We have the church donation tomorrow. We have..." "Relax," I said, cutting her off. "I have it covered. I have a special checkbook. Cashier's checks. Pre-authorized. The bank issued them before the lockdown. I can write checks for anything we need, including the donation on Sunday. I heard her exhale. Relief. But underneath it, suspicion. Are you sure it'll work? She asked carefully. Positive, I said. The checks are backed by verified funds. No electronic transfer required. Old school. Pen and paper. Just like I used to do business 30 years ago. Okay, she said quietly. Okay, but Theodore, this is a lot. Are you sure everything's safe? Everything's fine, Claudette, I said. We'll get through this. And on Sunday, when I hand over the estate, none of this will matter anymore. She hung up, but I knew she wasn't convinced. She was rattled. And rattled people make mistakes. Saturday was a day of silence. No calls. No texts. I stayed home. Kept my distance. Let them stew in their panic. But Veronica's surveillance team kept me updated. At 11:30, Claudette and Savannah met at a Starbucks in Green Hills. The investigators snapped photos from a parked car. They were arguing. Claudette was gesturing wildly. Savannah was shaking her head. At one point, Savannah pointed at Claudette and said something that made Claudette's face go white. Veronica's text, looks like they're turning on each other. Savannah thinks Claudette triggered the freeze. Claudette thinks Savannah tried to hack the accounts. I smiled. Paranoia was setting in. Just like I'd planned. By Saturday evening, I knew it was time for the final piece. I drove to the Cathedral of Hope at 7 p.m. Leonard was in his office reviewing notes for Sunday's sermon. He looked up when I knocked. Theodore, he said, standing quickly. I wasn't expecting you. I need a favor, Leonard, I said, walking in and closing the door behind me. Of course, anything. I pulled out an envelope and set it on his desk. There's $75,000 in here. Cashier's check. Leonard's eyes widened. Theodore, I can't, it's not a donation, I said. It's payment. Payment for what? Tomorrow's service. I said, I'm making the announcement in front of the congregation. I'm transferring my entire estate. It's going to be a big moment. Emotional. Historic. And I want it broadcast. Broadcast on every screen in the sanctuary. I said, on the live stream, on YouTube, on Facebook. I want the world to see the grace and legacy being passed down. I want it recorded. I want it perfect. Leonard hesitated. Theodore, our tech team usually handles, I want the best, I said, tapping the envelope. $75,000 covers upgraded cameras, professional streaming equipment, backup servers. I want crystal clear video and audio. No glitches, no technical difficulties. Can you make that happen? Leonard looked at the envelope. Then at me. Greed flickered in his eyes. Yes, he said. Yes, I can make that happen. Good, I said, because my legacy depends on it. I walked out, leaving the check on his desk. Leonard thought he was being paid to glorify me. He had no idea he was being paid to broadcast his own arrest. Saturday night, I sat in my study and organized the files. The video from the VIP suite, Claudette and Savannah toasting to the stupidest man in Nashville. The audio recording from the cafe. Savannah threatening to accuse me of sexual assault. The DNA reports. The poison napkin. The paternity results. Savannah's real birth certificate showing she was 50 years old. The bank records. $720,000 in payments to Donovan. The $400,000 debt payoff. The journal. Donovan's handwritten confession. His discovery of the frame-up plan. The screenshots. Claudette. Savannah. And Leonard, planning to frame Donovan for drug trafficking and murder him in prison. 50 years of lies compressed into a single USB drive. Tomorrow, 500 people would watch it on screens 20 feet high. Tomorrow was Judgment Day. Sunday morning. I drove to the cathedral for the last time. The parking lot looked like a luxury car show. All those pious people. Coming to witness what they thought was a blessing. They were about to witness an execution. It was 9:45 a.m. The service started at 10. I sat in my truck for a moment, staring at the Cathedral of Hope through the windshield. The stained glass windows glowed in the morning light. The cross on top reaching toward heaven, like it had any right to be there. I was wearing my best suit. Navy blue. Custom tailored. The one I'd worn to close my first $1 million deal. The USB drive was in my inside pocket. A small weight. Pressing against my ribs. Like a bullet waiting to be fired. I checked my phone. Text from Veronica. In position. Back row. Laptop ready. Chief Bowen is here. 6 officers outside in plain clothes. We're live on YouTube, Facebook, and the church website. 12,000 viewers already. Signal when ready. I replied, see you inside. I stepped out of the truck and walked slowly toward the entrance. I didn't rush. I leaned on my cane, not because I needed it, but because I wanted them to see weakness. I wanted Claudette to think she'd won. I wanted Savannah to taste victory before I ripped it away. The sanctuary was packed. 500 people. Standing room only. Board members from Crosspoint Development. Business partners. Community leaders. Church elders. Society wives. Photographers. Journalists. Everyone who mattered in Nashville had come to watch Theodore Grayson hand over his empire. I walked down the center aisle. Slowly. Deliberately. People turned to look. Whispers rippled through the crowd. There he is. He looks so frail. Poor man. At least he's doing the right thing. I kept my face neutral. Humble. A tired old man, ready to pass the torch. The front row was reserved for family. Claudette sat on the aisle. Wearing a white dress and a wide-brimmed hat, like she was at the Kentucky Derby. She looked radiant. Angelic. The picture of a devoted wife about to inherit a fortune. Beside her, Savannah wore a designer maternity dress, her hand resting on her belly in that universal gesture of impending motherhood. She looked young. Glowing. Innocent. No one in this room knew she was 50 years old. No one knew the baby wasn't Donovan's. No one knew she'd threatened to destroy me with a false accusation 3 days ago. And beside Savannah, sat Donovan, my son, my blood. He looked like hell. His face was pale. His shirt wrinkled. His hands, trembling in his lap. He wouldn't look at me. He stared straight ahead, jaw clenched, like a man waiting for a firing squad. I didn't stop. I walked past them without a word and took my seat in the second row, reserved for speakers. I glanced toward the back of the sanctuary. Veronica sat in the last pew, her laptop open on her lap, headphones around her neck. She caught my eye and nodded once. 2 rows behind her, Chief Henry Bowen sat in plain clothes, jeans and a polo shirt, looking like just another congregant. But I saw the bulge under his jacket. I saw the way his eyes scanned the room. On stage, the worship band was finishing their set. The choir swayed in their robes, voices lifting in harmony. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound. The same hymn Claudette had hummed while I lay dying on the floor. At 10 a.m. sharp, Pastor Leonard Bishop walked to the pulpit. He looked resplendent in his white and gold robes, his silver hair perfectly combed, his smile warm and welcoming. Brothers and sisters, he said, his voice booming through the sanctuary. Welcome. Today is a sacred day. A day of legacy. A day of blessing. The crowd murmured in agreement. We are gathered here to witness the passing of stewardship. Leonard continued. Our brother, Theodore Grayson, has built an empire with his own hands. 40 years of labor. 40 years of sacrifice. And today, in the spirit of wisdom and humility, he will entrust that legacy to the next generation. Applause rippled through the sanctuary. Heads nodded. People smiled. Leonard gestured. Toward me. Theodore, would you please join me? I stood slowly, gripping my cane. I walked up the 3 steps to the stage. Each step deliberate. Each movement calculated to look like effort. The LED screens on either side of the pulpit lit up with my face, 20 feet high, magnified for the crowd, broadcast live to thousands online. I reached the pulpit and gripped the edges. I looked out at the 500 faces staring back at me. Expectant. Curious. Hungry. In the front row, Claudette smiled. Savannah's eyes gleamed. Donovan looked like he might vomit. I cleared my throat. The microphone amplified the sound, filling the sanctuary with anticipation. Friends, I began. Family. Partners. Thank you for being here. My voice was steady. Strong. Not the voice of a dying man. Life is not a business transaction, I said. It's a legacy. It's what you leave behind when you're gone. It's the truth you pass down to the next generation. Nods. Murmurs of agreement. Last week, I continued, I collapsed. I felt death's hand on my shoulder. I'm 73 years old. I've lived a full life. I've built something I'm proud of. And I realized, it's time. Time to let go. Time to pass it on. Claudette leaned forward in her seat. Savannah's smile widened. Today I'm giving away everything, I said. $48 million. My company. My properties. My life's work. All of it. The sanctuary was silent. Every eye on me. Every breath held. But before I sign those papers, I said, my voice dropping, before I hand over this legacy, I want you to see something. I reached into my jacket and pulled out the USB drive. I held it up. I want you to see the truth about this family. Claudette's smile faltered. Savannah's face went pale. Donovan's eyes snapped to mine, wide with terror. Because legacy isn't just about money, I said. It's about honesty. It's about integrity. And it's about making sure the world knows exactly who you're leaving your fortune to. I turned to Veronica and nodded. The lights in the sanctuary dimmed. The massive LED screens flickered. 500 faces turned toward them. Confused. Curious. The red recording lights on the cameras burned bright, like the eyes of judgment. And the slaughter began. The video played for 3 minutes. 3 minutes of my wife and daughter-in-law mocking me, planning my death. And with every passing second, 500 faces transformed. From curiosity to horror to rage. The LED screens blazed to life. The timestamp appeared, 11:47 p.m. Wedding reception. VIP suite. The crowd leaned forward, confused, curious. Then Claudette appeared on screen, 20 feet tall, striding across the VIP suite with champagne in hand. Not the tired, limping woman who'd left the reception. This Claudette moved like a predator. Savannah followed, kicking off her heels, laughing. The audio was crystal clear. Leonard's $75,000 had bought the best speakers money could buy. Claudette poured 2 glasses. They raised them high. To the stupidest man in Nashville, Savannah said. The sanctuary gasped. A collective intake of breath. 500 people stunned into silence. Claudette laughed on screen. To Theodore, the goose that lays the golden eggs. They clinked glasses. In the front row, Claudette shot to her feet. That's fake, she screamed, her voice shrill and desperate. That's AI. Deep fake. He doctored that video. Every head in the sanctuary turned to her. I didn't move. I stood at the pulpit, gripping the edges, my face cold and emotionless. Sit down, Claudette, I said. My voice was quiet, but the microphone carried it through the room like a judge's gavel. She didn't sit. She stood there trembling, her white hat askew, her face pale. I said, sit down. Pastor Leonard stepped forward, his hand raised. Theodore, perhaps we should sit down. Claudette collapsed back into her seat. Savannah grabbed her hand, squeezing it white-knuckled. Stay. Claudette hissed. The video continued on screen. Savannah rubbed her belly. I just hope Donovan doesn't get suspicious. It's exhausting pretending to be attracted to him. A woman in the third row gasped. Oh my God, the baby isn't his. Savannah continued on screen. It's Cody's. The personal trainer. But Donovan's so dumb he doesn't even question the timeline. The sanctuary erupted. Whispers became shouts. People stood. Pointed. A man in the 5th row yelled, "You lying witch." Donovan buried his face in his hands. His shoulders shook. On screen, Claudette leaned closer to Savannah. Whatever you do, don't let Theodore find out about Cody. If he asks for a DNA test, we lose everything. We're safe, Savannah said. The old man is blind. The video cut. The screens went black for a moment. Then the second clip loaded. The cafe. 3 days ago. The hidden camera footage. Savannah's voice, sharp and cold. You think I'm cheap, Theodore? You think $750,000 is enough to buy me? On screen, I sat across from her, offering her the envelope. I know about the offshore accounts, Savannah said. The $35 million trust fund. I know about everything, and here's what's going to happen. You're going to sign that trust over to me. Not Donovan. Me. And if I say no, my voice asked on screen. Savannah leaned forward, her eyes hard. Then I go to the police and I tell them you sexually assaulted me. The sanctuary exploded. Women screamed. Men shouted. A board member in the 10th row stood up. You sick, I'll tell them you forced yourself on me, Savannah continued on screen. I'll cry. I'll shake. I'm young. I'm pregnant. I'm vulnerable. And you're old. Rich. Powerful. Who do you think they'll believe, Theodore? Even if you win in court, you lose. Your name gets dragged through the mud. Your legacy becomes that old man who assaulted his daughter-in-law. A woman in the choir stood up and screamed, "Liar! Monster!" Savannah tried to stand. Tried to run. But Claudette grabbed her arm, yanking her back down. "Stay!" Claudette hissed. The video cut again. The third clip loaded. Kitchen footage. Hidden camera. Claudette humming Amazing Grace. Grinding white pills in a marble mortar. Scraping the powder into the blender. Pouring the green smoothie into a glass. The sanctuary went silent. Deadly silent. "How much longer?" a voice on screen asked. It was Savannah, off camera. "Soon," Claudette replied. "I've been crushing digoxin into his smoothies for 3 weeks. Just a little. Every day. It builds up. Looks like natural heart failure. One day he'll just go to sleep and not wake up." Someone in the back row vomited. I heard it. The sound of disgust. Of horror echoing through the sanctuary. "Murderer!" A man shouted. "Murderer!" The screen switched again. Now it displayed a document. Official clinical toxicology report. Theodore Grayson. Substance detected. Digoxin. 0 nist mg, lethal dose, yes. Source, contaminated napkin sample. Dr. Patrick Lell stood up from his seat in the middle section. "I conducted that test personally," he said, his voice carrying. "That napkin contained enough digoxin to kill a man. Within an hour. Theodore Grayson was being systematically poisoned." I reached into my jacket and pulled out a Ziploc bag. The napkin. Green-stained. Crumpled. Evidence. I held it up. "This," I said, my voice steady, "is the smoothie my wife made for me on Monday morning. I didn't swallow it. I spit it into this napkin. And this napkin saved my life." The sanctuary erupted. Chairs scraped. People stood, shouted, pointed at Claudette. "Arrest her. Call the police. She's a killer." I raised my hand. Silence fell. Jagged. Sharp. "We're not done," I said. The screens flickered again. Bank records. Spreadsheets. Numbers highlighted in red. Claudette Grayson to Donovan Grayson, $40,000 per month x 18 months equals $720,000. One-time payment $400,000 total. "My wife," I said, my voice hard, "paid my son over $1 million. Not out of love. Out of control." The screen switched. Surveillance photos. Claudette meeting Donovan in parking lots, handing him envelopes. Text messages. "Claudette, don't call 911. Let him die. I'll handle the rest." Donovan, "What if someone finds out?" Claudette, "They won't. Just stay quiet. The money keeps coming." I looked down at the front row, at my son, at the boy I'd raised, at the man who'd watched me collapse and done nothing. "My son," I said, my voice breaking for the first time. "Watched me die on the floor. And he chose drugs. He chose money. He chose his dealer over his father." Donovan sobbed. Loud, choking sobs. He tried to stand, tried to run, but his legs gave out. He collapsed back into the seat, his face in his hands. The screen switched one more time. Journal pages. Handwritten. Desperate. "The dealers are going to kill me. $400,000. I can't tell Dad. Mom paid the debt, but now I owe her. I watched my father die. I'm a coward. I'm a murderer." My voice was thick now. Raw. "My son is an addict. And my wife weaponized that addiction. She paid his dealers. She kept him hooked. She turned him into a tool. And she used him to help kill me." The sanctuary was a storm. Rage. Grief. Disbelief. People were crying, praying, shouting for blood. But I wasn't finished. I looked out at the 500 faces, at the 12,000 watching online, at Claudette, pale and trembling. At Savannah, trapped and exposed. At Donovan, broken and ashamed. "But that," I said slowly, "isn't even the worst part." The sanctuary fell silent. I turned to the screens. Because the identity fraud, the 50-year conspiracy, the murder of my first wife, those bombs are still waiting to explode. I stepped back to the pulpit and looked out at 500 faces frozen in shock. The conspiracy video had shown them poison and betrayal. The extortion audio had shown them threats. The toxicology report had shown them murder. And Donovan's bank records had shown them the price of a son's soul. But I wasn't done. "Let me show you who Savannah really is." I nodded to Veronica. The screen changed. Reveal 5, Savannah's identity. Side-by-side photographs filled the 20-foot LED wall. On the left, a woman in her mid-40s, tired eyes, heavy jowls, crow's feet. On the right, the same bone structure, but lifted, tight, and smooth into the face of a 25-year-old. Before and after, I said. Miami Cosmetic Surgery Center, 2015. Total cost $400,000. Paid in full by Claudette Blackwell. Gasps rippled through the sanctuary. Birth certificate, I continued. The document appeared on screen. It's Sarah Mitchell, born November 12, 1975. Mother, Claudette Blackwell, age 21, unmarried. Father, not listed. I let that sink in. DNA test conducted Wednesday confirms Savannah Grayson is Claudette's biological daughter. Probability 99.9%. Savannah screamed. That's a lie. Second DNA test, I said calmly, confirms the father. Pastor Leonard Bishop. The sanctuary exploded. Leonard lunged toward the exit. 2 deacons blocked his path. Savannah is 50 years old. I shouted, my voice cutting through the chaos. She married my son 3 weeks ago. Donovan is 43. I looked directly at my son. Your wife is your stepsister. Donovan vomited onto the front pew. The crowd roared, some in horror, some in rage, some in disbelief. I raised my hand and waited for silence. Reveal 6, Grace's murder, 1983. My first wife, Grace, died in a car accident on I-40. Police report at the time noted brake line failure. The report appeared on screen, stamped and official. What the report didn't say was this. The line had been deliberately cut. I showed a photo of Grace's car, the severed hydraulic line circled in red. Claudette Blackwell was Grace's best friend. She had access to our garage. She had motive, a $2 million life insurance policy and a widower with a growing real estate empire. I looked at Claudette. You killed my wife. You staged her death. And 2 years later, you married me. Liar. Claudette shrieked. Forensic Review Commission last week confirms it, I said. Tool marks match. Timeline matches. Motive matches. The congregation was on its feet now. Some shouting, some weeping, some calling for blood. Reveal the frame-up plan. And here, I said, is what they planned for Donovan. Text messages filled the screen. Intercepted group chat between Claudette, Savannah, and Leonard. Claudette, 3 months after he's gone, we plant the drugs. Savannah, 50 kilos. Trunk of his car. Anonymous DA tip. Leonard, prison. Assets frozen. Claudette controls everything. Claudette, 6 months in. Arrange an accident. Gang violence. Savannah, widow inherits. Problem solved. Donovan stood, shaking. You were going to kill me too. Savannah said nothing. Claudette turned away. Leonard closed his eyes. Reveal 8, the arrests. Sirens wailed outside. Chief Henry Bowen entered through the back doors, flanked by 6 officers in tactical gear. Claudette Grayson. Bowen announced, his voice echoing through the sanctuary. You're under arrest for first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and fraud. 2 officers pulled Claudette from her seat. She didn't resist. Her white hat fell to the floor as they cuffed her wrists behind her back. Savannah Grayson, or Sarah Mitchell. You're under arrest for conspiracy, extortion, identity theft, and accessory to attempted murder. Savannah fought. She screamed, kicked, bit. It took 3 officers to restrain her. Her designer maternity dress tore at the shoulder as they dragged her down the center aisle. Pastor Leonard Bishop. Bowen continued, conspiracy to commit fraud and embezzlement of church funds. Leonard tried to invoke pastoral privilege. Ruth Bishop, his wife of 40 years, stood from the 3rd row and shouted, take him. The officers walked all 3 past the front pew, past Donovan, past me. Claudette's face was blank. Savannah was sobbing. Leonard was praying under his breath. The sanctuary doors closed behind them with a hollow thud. I stood alone at the pulpit. 500 people stared. 12,000 watched online. Donovan knelt on the carpet, shaking, his face in his hands. I felt nothing. No satisfaction. No rage. Just a cold certainty that justice, even when it burns everything down, is still justice. I looked at the screen one last time. 6 feet of evidence. 50 years of lies. And then I looked at my son. Donovan, I said quietly. He looked up, tears streaming. I still have one judgment left to make. I knelt beside my son on the floor where I'd faked my death. 500 people watched in silence as I spoke the hardest words a father can say. You are not my son anymore. I stood at the pulpit, looking down at Donovan. He was still on his knees, face buried in his hands, shoulders shaking with sobs that echoed through the silent sanctuary. The arrests were over. The villains were gone. But the hardest part remained. I walked down the 3 steps slowly. My footsteps echoed on the marble floor. The congregation watched. Silent. Waiting. I stopped beside Donovan. Looked down at him. My son. My blood. My betrayer. Stand up, I said quietly. He didn't move. Couldn't move. His hands covered his face, his breath coming in ragged gasps. I knelt down beside him, eye level. Father to son, one last time. Donovan, I said, look at me. He shook his head. I can't. Look at me. Slowly, he lowered his hands. His face was red, swollen, streaked with tears. He looked like a child. Broken. Terrified. You're not going to prison, I said. His eyes widened. Hope flickered. I'm not? No, because technically you didn't commit a crime. You didn't poison me. You didn't threaten me. You didn't forge documents. You were a coward. You were complicit. But you didn't pull the trigger. He exhaled. Relief flooded his face. But, I said. The relief died. You knew. You knew about the digoxin. You suspected I was being poisoned. You saw your mother making those smoothies. You wondered. And you said nothing. Dad, I was scared. You took $40,000 a month, I said. For 18 months. You took $720,000 to stay quiet. You signed a forged DNR. You watched me collapse. You reached for the phone. And then you chose the money. She had leverage. Donovan cried. She was going to tell you about the drugs. She was going to destroy me. So you destroyed me instead, I said. He had no answer. And here's the irony, I said. After I died, they were going to kill you anyway. Plant 50 kilograms of cocaine in your car. Call the DEA. You'd go to prison for 20 years. And then 6 months in, you'd have an accident. A shiv. A gang attack. And you'd die a convicted drug dealer. No. Donovan whispered. They wouldn't. You read the plan, I said. 2 days ago, you found the screenshots. You know I'm telling the truth. He collapsed forward. Sobbing again. You were always going to die, Donovan. Whether you saved me or not, you were a loose end. And they were going to erase you. Dad, please don't call me that, I said, standing up. Pulled a checkbook from my jacket pocket. The special cashier's checkbook I'd promised. I turned away from Donovan. Faced the congregation. Sister Margaret Coleman. I called out. An elderly nun in the 5th row stood up, her face, kind but confused. Sister Margaret runs Hope House, I said. A children's home on the west side for orphans, for kids who've been abandoned. I opened the checkbook and wrote. My hand was steady. I tore out the check and held it up. $32 million, I said, to Hope House. For the children who deserved better than the family they were born into. The congregation erupted into applause. Sister Margaret's hands flew to her mouth, tears streaming down her face. I walked down the aisle and handed her the check. Thank you, she whispered. I turned back to the congregation. I'm keeping $3 million for myself, I said. Enough to live simply. And I have $13 million in offshore accounts. I'll live comfortably. But I'll live honestly. I walked back to Donovan, still kneeling on the floor. I wrote another check. This one took only a second. I tore it out and dropped it at his feet. $0. Donovan stared at it, then looked up at me, disbelief on his face. That's your inheritance, I said. Nothing. Dad. However, I said, cutting him off. There's a rehab facility in Montana. Wilderness therapy. Complete isolation. 1 year. No phones, no internet, no visitors. It's brutal. It's hard. And it's already paid for. Donovan looked up at me, hope flickering. You can go voluntarily, I said. Walk in tomorrow. Detox. Clean yourself up. Learn to be a man. And when you walk out a year from now, you'll walk out free. And if I don't, he whispered. Then you walk out of this church with nothing. With your addiction. with your shame. The choice is yours. Dad, please, Donovan said, reaching for my hand. Please. I'm sorry. I love you. Please don't. The son I loved, I said, pulling my hand away. Died when he signed that DNR. I buried him today, right here. Donovan's face crumpled. The rehab spot is still open, I said. Not because you're my son. But because even strangers deserve a chance at redemption. Goodbye, Donovan. I turned and walked toward the exit. My footsteps echoed. The congregation parted like the Red Sea. No one spoke. Behind me, I heard Donovan's voice, raw and breaking. Dad, I didn't turn around. Please. I kept walking. Dad, I'm sorry. The doors were 20 feet away. 15. 10. Please don't leave me. I pushed the door open. Sunlight flooded in, blinding and warm. The smell of spring air. I stepped through. The door closed behind me with a sound like sealing a tomb. I stood on the cathedral steps, breathing deeply. The air tasted clean. For the first time in 40 years, I wasn't carrying anyone else's weight. And there, parked at the curb, gleaming cherry red in the Sunday sun, was my future. A 1967 Shelby Cobra. The car I'd promised myself when I retired. The car I'd been too busy, too responsible to ever buy. I'd ordered it 3 days ago. Had it delivered this morning. I walked down the steps and ran my hand along the hood. The metal was warm. Alive. I opened the door and slid into the driver's seat. The leather was soft. The steering wheel felt right in my hands. I started the engine. It roared to life. Deep. Powerful. The sound of freedom. I sat there for a moment, looking back at the cathedral. The stained glass glowed. The cross reached toward heaven. Inside, Donovan was still on his knees, still broken, still alone. I'd given him a choice, rehabilitation or destruction. But I wouldn't be there to see which one he chose. I put the car in gear and pulled away from the curb. The engine growled. The tires gripped the asphalt. No destination. No plan. No family. No empire. Just me. And the open road. And the rest of my life. 3 months later. Claudette sits in a Nashville jail. Awaiting trial for first-degree murder. Life without parole. I haven't visited. I won't. Savannah gave birth in prison. A boy. DNA confirmed, Donovan is the father after all. The baby was placed with child services. She's serving 25 years. Leonard was defrocked and convicted. 15 years. Ruth divorced him and donated the church's remaining assets to shelters. We exchanged notes. We understand each other. Donovan chose rehab. Day 90. According to the program director, 90 days clean in the Montana wilderness. He wrote me a letter. It sits, unopened, on my kitchen table. Maybe I'll read it in 10 years. Maybe I'll forgive him. But not today. I live in Cannon Beach, Oregon now. A small coastal town where no one knows who I am. I rent a cottage 2 blocks from the ocean. Simple. I read. I walk. I heal. If there's anything I learned, it's this: the most dangerous enemies sleep under your own roof. Trust isn't a virtue when given blindly. It has to be earned. Family isn't blood. It's loyalty. Money doesn't buy loyalty. It reveals character. And sometimes, what it reveals will break your heart. But that's better than living a lie. Watch the people closest to you. Pay attention to the small betrayals. If you feel exhausted, run. Your instincts know. It's never too late to start over. Even at 73. Even when you've lost everything. Freedom is worth the cost. I'm writing this from a pullout on Highway 101, overlooking the Pacific Ocean. The sun is setting. Painting the water gold. I reach into my pocket. Pull out my wedding ring. 40 years I wore this. Through Grace's death. Through Claudette's lies. Through the slow poisoning of my body and soul. I hold it up to the sunlight. It catches the glow. Spinning gold. I throw it as hard as I can. It arcs through the air. Glittering. And disappears into the ocean. Gone. I smile. The first real smile in months. I walk back to the Cobra. Start the engine. That beautiful roar. I pull onto the highway. The road curves along the coastline. Stretching into the horizon. Behind me, Nashville grows smaller. The cathedral. The betrayal. the empire I built and burned. I press the accelerator. The Cobra surges forward. I'm 73 years old. I have no wife. No son. No empire. But for the first time in 40 years, the road ahead is mine alone. And that is worth everything. I'm 73 years old now. I've built empires, buried a wife, and watched my own family try to poison me for money. And if there's one thing I've learned from this family betrayal, it's this: the most dangerous enemies sleep under your own roof. Don't be like me. Don't ignore the signs. Don't trust blindly just because someone shares your last name or sits beside you at the dinner table. Family betrayal doesn't announce itself with trumpets. It hides behind I love yous, behind church potlucks, behind 40 years of wedding photos. I thought loyalty was guaranteed. I thought blood meant everything. God had to nearly let me die to show me the truth. He saved me with a napkin. He gave me the courage to stand in front of 500 people and expose the lies. And he reminded me that a real family story isn't written by DNA. It's written by loyalty, sacrifice, and love that doesn't come with a price tag. My family story was 50 years of calculated deception. Yours doesn't have to be. Here's my advice. Watch the ones who smile the widest. Notice who profits when you're weak. And when God whispers a warning in your spirit, listen. He doesn't give third chances. I gave $32 million to orphans because strangers deserved hope more than my bloodline deserved wealth. Family betrayal cost me everything I spent a lifetime building. But it gave me back my integrity. And before God, I'd make that choice again. So let this be your warning. Trust God first, trust your gut second, and never ignore the bitter aftertaste in your morning coffee. What do you think? Have you ever faced betrayal from someone you loved and trusted most? Tell me in the comments below. I really want to know your stories.